Ilara's hands, raw from lie and labor, gripped the axe handle. The wood, silvered by sun and time, felt like an extension of her own bone. Each swing was a punctuation mark in the vast, silent sentence of the plains. Chop. Dust. Chop. Heat. The sun beat down, a brazen hammer on the anvil of the land. Her cabin, a small, stubborn shadow against the endless canvas of ochre and blue, offered little respite. It was a shelter built of grief as much as timber, each plank a memory of Samuel, each nail a day she had endured alone since the fever took him, then little Martha. A small, unadorned stone, nearly swallowed by prairie grass, marked their rest behind the lean-to. She did not visit it often. The remembering was a constant hum beneath the surface of her days, like the wind that never truly settled. This morning, the wind carried something else. A flicker of movement at the edge of the cottonwood grove, where the creek whispered its thin song. Not deer. Not coyote. Too large. Too still, then too sudden. She lowered the axe. Her heart, a trap bird, beat against her ribs. The air thickened. It was the kind of stillness that came before the thunder, or before bloodshed. She'd known enough of both. The Modoc. The word was a raw wound in the territory, spoken in hushed, fearful tones in the distant settlement she avoided. War, they called it. But she knew war was just a grand name for 1,000 private sorrows. She moved, not towards the cabin's illusory safety, but towards the trees, her bare feet silent on the parched earth. A man lay there, face down in the dirt and sparse grass, one arm flung out as if reaching for something just beyond his grasp. Dark hair, matted with blood and dust, clung to his neck. His buckskin clothing was torn, stained a terrible, vital crimson. A Modoc. No doubt. The beadwork on a tattered pouch at his belt, the cast of his features, even in near unconsciousness, spoke of his people. He was dying. A tremor went through her. Not of fear, not entirely. It was something colder, deeper. The instinct to turn, to run, to bolt the door and pretend the desert had swallowed him whole, was a living thing inside her. He was the enemy. The stories told in hushed corners of the general store painted his kind as savages, merciless. But the man at her feet was just broken. A long, shuddering breath escaped him, a sound like dry leaves skittering across stone. His hand, fingers stained dark, twitched. She saw the lines of pain etched around his eyes, the pallor beneath his sun-darkened skin. He was young. Younger than Samuel had been. The thought was an unwelcome shard of glass in her heart. She knelt. The dust motes danced in the shafts of light breaking through the cottonwood leaves, illuminating the starkness of the scene. His breath hitched again. Thirst. The land was full of it. She was full of it, a thirst for a life that no longer was. She looked back at her cabin. At the unmarked graves. What was one more risk in a life already pared down to its starkest essentials? What was compassion but a flicker of warmth in the vast, encroaching cold? She rose, her decision made, a quiet settling in her soul that was almost like peace. She fetched the water bucket from the creek's edge, the cool liquid sloshing, a promise. Then, with strength she didn't know she possessed, she began the struggle to bring the wounded warrior into the shade of her small porch, his weight a terrible burden, his life a fragile ember she had chosen, for reasons she couldn't articulate even to herself, to shield from the wind. He groaned, a low, guttural sound, as she maneuvered him. His eyes fluttered open for a fleeting second, dark, fathomless, filled with a pain that mirrored the desolation of the land itself. Then, they closed again. She dipped a strip of clean linen, torn from an old shift, into the water, and gently touched it to his cracked lips. He did not stir. But she saw the faintest tremor pass through him, a sign. He was still tethered to the world. The sun climbed higher, relentless. She worked, cleaning his wounds, the arrow still lodged cruelly in his shoulder, another deep gash on his leg. Each touch was a question she asked of fate, of God, of the silent, watching sky. What have I done? The water, cool and clear, dripped from the cloth onto his parched skin, a sacrament in the heart of the wilderness. It was a beginning. Or an end. She could not tell which. The arrow was a stubborn root, buried deep in flesh and sinew. Ilara's hands, usually steady churning butter or mending tack, trembled as she prepared to draw it. She had seen Samuel set a calf's broken leg, his face grim, movements precise. She had no such skill, only a fierce, desperate will. The warrior, she didn't know his name, lay on the thin pallet she dragged before the cold hearth. His breathing was shallow, a rasp against the cabin's silence. She'd levered him inside, the rough floorboards a stark contrast to his dark, still form. Outside, the world hummed its usual tune, insects, the distant sigh of wind. Inside, time held its breath. She took a deep draught of air, smelling dust and dried herbs. She'd boiled water, sharpened her knife, torn strips from Samuel's old shirt, the softest linen, kept in a cedar chest with remnants of her past. Martha's christening gown, a tiny, useless thing, lay beside it, smelling of lavender and lost hope. Using the linen now, on this stranger, this enemy, felt like betrayal. Yet, what was memory if not woven into the present, however harsh? She braced herself. His eyes flickered open as she touched the arrow, dark pools reflecting low light, unreadable. No fear, only profound weariness, perhaps defiance. He didn't flinch, didn't cry out, not when she gripped the shaft and, with a prayer in her throat, pulled. The sound, a sickening tear, echoed. Blood welled, dark, immediate. He gritted his teeth, a muscle working in his jaw, but no sound escaped. His stoicism was a wall, yet she admired its stark strength. She worked quickly, cleaning the wound, packing it with yarrow and comfrey poultice, her movements more assured. She bound it tightly with linen strips. His skin was hot, fever coiling within him. For days, she moved in a blur of tending. Forcing sips of willow bark tea and thin broth. Cooling his brow. He drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes murmuring in a language she didn't understand, words like stones in a dry riverbed. In lucid moments, his eyes followed her, assessing, questioning. She offered no explanations, asked for none. The small cabin became their world, bounded by sickness and silence. She slept fitfully on the floor beside him, cold seeping into her bones, rising at every rustle. One evening, as the sky bled into bruised purples, a new sound intruded. Hoofbeats. Distant, but drawing nearer. Not a lone rider, but several, moving with purpose. A posse. Or militia, scouring for Modoc resistance. Her blood ran cold. She rose, moving to the small, grimy window. Silhouettes against fading light, too far to discern features, but their intent felt like palpable pressure. They passed on the old trail south, voices faint on the wind, harsh, impatient. They did not turn towards her homestead. Not this time. She let out a held breath, shoulders slumping. The danger was a constant shadow, a reminder of the world beyond, a world merciless to her, or to the man on her floor. She turned back. His eyes were open, fixed on her, a flicker of something unreadable. Had he heard? Understood? She didn't know. She ladled broth into a bowl, steam rising. She knelt, offered it. He watched her, then, slowly, with great effort, reached a hand, not for the bowl, but towards the linen bandage on his arm, fingers lightly tracing the soft, worn fabric. The closest thing to a touch, to acknowledgement. A silent question. Or thanks. She simply nodded, throat tight, and held the bowl steady. The fever broke like a storm, leaving him weak but lucid. Kale, he finally rasped, voice rough as gravel, when she'd asked if he could swallow. Just kale. The word hung, a fragile bridge between their solitudes. He began to mend, slowly, stubbornly. Pain lines around his mouth and eyes softened, revealing a face younger than she first thought, though marked by a weariness beyond his years. He watched her intensely, dark eyes missing nothing, her mending his torn buckskin with unwound grain sack thread, her soft voice to her half-wild chickens, the meticulously stitched patch on her dress elbow. He saw the faint outline where a wedding band had been, a pale circle against sun-browned skin. He saw the solitude clinging to her like wood smoke, a cloak of resilience and sorrow. One morning, she found him sitting up, back against the wall, attempting to rewrap his leg bandage. Clumsy movements, brow furrowed. She wordlessly took the linen and knelt, touch professional, impersonal, yet gentle. Bleeding stopped, she said, low. More than she usually spoke. He nodded, gaze dropping to her hands. You have skill, he murmured, words a strain. She shrugged, finishing the knot. Necessity later that day, kneading dough, a shadow fell across the open doorway. Her heart leaped. Not Cale. A man on horseback, silhouetted against glaring sun. Tall, lean, rifle across saddle horn. Eyes narrowed, swept her homestead, lingering on chimney smoke, closed shutters. A stockman, by dress, but with a predatory stillness that set her teeth on edge. He said, curtly. Seen any strays? Modoc strays. Casual words, threat a coiled snake. Ilara's hand stilled. She felt Cale's presence behind her, silent, intense listening. She forced her gaze to meet the rider's, expression neutral. No one but myself, she replied, voice steady, pulse thrumming. Just me and the wind. His eyes lingered, searching, then swept the cabin again. Heard skirmish up north. Bucks got away. Government's offering bounty. He spat tobacco juice near her doorstep. Casual brutality clenched her stomach. Good money for a dead Indian. Better for live. 1-inch cold dread seeped into her. This embodied the fear haunting her days. She thought of Cale, his quiet strength, the sorrow in his eyes. Not a stray, not a buck. A man. Seen nothing, she repeated, firmer. Poor place. Nothing here, the rider grunted, unconvinced, but after another long look, tugged his reins. Keep eyes peeled. Dangerous times. He wheeled his horse, rode off, leaving dust and suffocating silence. Ilara leaned against the doorframe, legs weak. When she turned, Cale watched, expression unreadable. Silence stretched, thick with unspoken things. Then, he reached into his tattered pouch, drawing out a small, carved obsidian bird, smooth, cool, absorbing meager light. He held it out. Not payment, she sensed. A token. An offering. For sight, he said, low. So you see, true. She took it, polished stone heavy. Edges sharp, yet it fit her hand. She looked from carving to his face. What had he seen in her? What truth did he believe she possessed? She didn't ask. Some things too fragile for words. She closed her fingers around the obsidian, its coolness an anchor in her fear. She had made her choice again with the rider. She would protect him. Whatever the cost. The landscape outside, once merely harsh, now held its breath, watching, waiting. The wind whispered secrets through the canyon, secrets of pursuit, survival, old hatreds, and the unexpected solace of shared silence. Dawn arrived not with gentle blush, but stark, grey accusation. A chill wind, unusual for the season, snaked through cabin wall cracks, raising gooseflesh on Ilara's arms. She'd barely slept, Ryder's words, his casual cruelty, echoing. The obsidian bird lay on the table, reflecting dim pre-dawn light. Cale was awake, sitting upright, back against the wall, listening. Not a wind, she realized, but something else she could not yet hear. He'd been like this for hours, a statue of vigilance, healing wounds forgotten. Then she heard it. A low, growing rumble, like distant thunder, but too rhythmic, deliberate. Many horses, steady pace, not frantic gallop of posse, but something more measured, ominous. Her heart constricted. Not the rider returning. This was different. More. She scrambled to the window, breath caught. The horizon, separating from dark earth, was alive with movement. Horses. Dozens. Warriors. Stark silhouettes against pale sky, lances and rifles catching fur sunrays, points of deadly light. Moving directly towards her cabin. 100, perhaps more. Modoc warriors. Her mind reeled. This was it. Price for her compassion. They had found him. Come for him. And for her. A white woman, alone, harboring one of their wounded. No questions, no mercy. Only retribution. She backed from the window, hand flying to her mouth to stifle a cry. Cale was on his feet, fluid grace belying recent injuries. His face, a mask of stone. He looked at her, a long, searching gaze. Apology? Warning? She couldn't tell. He stepped towards the door. No, she whispered, raw, desperate. They'll kill you. Us both. He paused, hand on the rough wooden latch. Looked back, and for the first time, she saw not stoic warrior, but something of the man beneath, a flicker of sorrow, grim acceptance. They are my people, he said, low, final. He opened the door, stepped into grey morning light. Ilara froze, trapped between flight and paralyzing terror. She heard hooves now, closer, surrounding the cabin. Creak of leather, jingle of bridles, soft snorts of horses. Then, silence. Heavy, expectant, pressing in, suffocating. She crept to the window, body trembling. Warriors formed a wide semicircle, horses like statues, faces grim, painted for war or mourning. At their head, a tall, imposing figure on a magnificent black horse radiated authority, gaze fixed on Cale, who stood alone before the cabin, unarmed, shoulders straight, head high. The leader dismounted, movements deliberate, powerful. Walked towards Cale, footsteps the only sound in vast, tense silence. Ilara watched, heart hammering. This was the confrontation. Moral reckoning. Cale spoke, voice clear in crisp air, not English, but flowing, guttural tones of his tongue. Gestured to cabin, then himself, words measured, earnest. The leader listened impassively, expression unchanging. Minutes stretched to eternity. Ilara couldn't understand words, but read body language, Cale's tension, leader's unwavering scrutiny. Finally, Cale fell silent. Leader's gaze shifted from Cale to the closed cabin door where Ilara cowered. She felt his stare like a physical weight. Then, he spoke, deep, resonant, accustomed to command. Spoke in Modoc tongue, Cale replied. Brief exchange. Cale turned, eyes finding her at the window. Gestured for her to come out. Legs like lead. Instinct screamed to stay hidden. But Cale's eyes held strange reassurance, a plea. Taking a shuddering breath, she unlatched the door, stepped out, blinking against sky's vastness, overwhelming presence of mounted warriors. Stood beside Cale, small, insignificant, worn dress stark against their buckskins. The leader's dark, piercing eye swept over her. No malice, she realized with a jolt, but deep, searching curiosity. Cale spoke again, halting English, gaze on Ilara, then leader. He asks, why? Why you help Ilara's throat dry? All eyes on her. 100 warriors. Looked at Cale, fading wound marks, quiet dignity even near death hadn't extinguished. Thought of Samuel, Martha, aching emptiness. He was hurt, she managed, voice barely a whisper. Needed, water met leader's gaze. He was a man. Far from home. In pain a silence fell, so profound she heard her own heart. Wind whispered through prairie grass, mournful. Leader's stern face impassive. Then, slowly, a change. Softening around eyes. Subtle shift in posture. Looked at Cale, then Ilara. Spoke again, Modoc, tone different. Cale translated, voice filled with quiet relief. He says, my people were searching. I am. Kinpusha's son pause. Our war leader. They thought me lost. Taken. Or dead. Looked at her, deep gratitude dawning. You saved not just a warrior. You saved a son. hope, revelation hung, shifting the landscape of fear into something else entirely. The word settled over Ilara like a warm blanket after long frost. Kintpusha's son. Captain Jack, white men called him, a name synonymous with fierce resistance, a desperate fight for ancestral lands. And Kale, the quiet man she pulled from death's brink, was his kin, his hope. The 100 warriors, not a war party bent on retribution, but a search party, driven by love and loyalty, hearts heavy with fear of loss. The imposing leader, now understood as a man of great import, perhaps Kintpush himself or a trusted lieutenant, stepped forward. His gaze, no longer intimidating, held profound respect. He spoke again, voice softer, imbued with gravity. Kale translated, he says, "Modoc, do not forget kindness. Nor courage." The leader gestured, a warrior dismounted, approached with a bundle in tan deerskin, laid it at Ilara's feet. "A gift." The leader spoke, eyes meeting hers, silent communication transcending language. "He offers peace," Kale explained, voice thick with emotion. "Says this place, your home, will be sacred. No Modoc will harm you or yours. You are." Eniet Kawa, struggling for English. "One who gives water." A friend to Ilara knelt, touched the deerskin. Soft, pliable. Slowly untied the leather thong. Inside, a magnificent woven blanket, colors vibrant, deep reds, earthy browns, sky blues, patterns intricate, speaking of mountains, rivers, eagle flights. A thing of beauty, a treasure in this harsh land. More, a symbol. A bridge. Tears welled, blurring vivid colors. Not fear or sorrow, but overwhelming gratitude, release from her isolation's long winter. She looked at the leader, Kale, stoic faces of surrounding warriors, expression softened with shared understanding. No longer enemies, but fellow souls who knew loss, valued courage, understood mercy's sacred power. She gave water to one man, received an ocean of unexpected grace. Warriors stayed briefly. Shared dried provisions, a gesture of fellowship. Kale, strength returning with his people's presence, walked with her to the creek, steps firmer. Looked at the small, weathered stone marking Samuel and Martha's graves, silent acknowledgement of her sorrows. "They watch over you," he said quietly, gaze sweeping the prairie. Good spirits. Before mounting to leave, Kale turned one last time. Took her hand, strong, warm, placed the obsidian bird back into her palm. "Keep this," he said. "To remember." "We do not forget." Then, with a final, lingering look, he swung onto his horse, joined departing warriors. Ilara stood before her cabin, gifted blanket on her arm, obsidian bird clutched. Watched riders become smaller, a dark river flowing into plains immensity, until swallowed by horizon. Silence descended, different now. Not empty, but full. Full of hooves' echo, murmur of a language understood in her heart, warmth of connection forged in fear and compassion. Her small ranch, once fortress of solitude and grief, felt different. Watched over. Part of something larger. Wind still whispered, but now carried new stories, possibilities. Sun, climbing to zenith, cast golden light, like a new beginning. She went inside, obsidian cool against skin, blanket a vibrant splash in dim cabin. World outside remained harsh, uncertain. But something within Ilara shifted. Her sorrow's deep well hadn't vanished, but alongside it, a new spring flowed, hope, connection, quiet, resilient strength. She had given water, her own parched soul began to heal. The simple act of kindness, a light in overwhelming darkness, proved more powerful than any weapon, more enduring than hatred. It reminds us, doesn't it, that even in the most desolate landscapes, external and internal, compassion seeds can root and blossom into something truly extraordinary. What choices do we make when faced with the other, the stranger, the one marked as enemy? And what unexpected harvests might we reap when we choose to offer a hand, a cup of water, a moment of grace? Think on these things. And if this story moved you, let us know in the comments below, subscribe for more tales of the human spirit, and click to see what other journeys await.